A billionaire came home early to check on his 3 paralyzed sons. What he saw the new maid doing on the floor with them left him shocked. He reached for his phone to call security, but then he saw something that made his hands shake. His sons' toes were moving. What happened next exposed a conspiracy so evil it destroyed everything he believed about medicine. This is a true story about what money can't buy, what the powerful hide, and what one woman with nothing risked everything to reveal. Before we continue, hit subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I believe this story found you today for a reason. The mansion sat on 12 acres in Greenwich, Connecticut, the wealthiest town in America, where the average home costs $8 million. This one cost $42 million, 40 rooms, Olympic pool, tennis courts, a garage that held 9 cars. But if you walked through those gold-trimmed doors and listened closely, you'd hear the one thing money couldn't buy: the sound of children's laughter. The house had been silent for 3 years, not the peaceful kind, the kind that follows tragedy and refuses to leave. 3 wheelchairs sat in the sunroom, facing floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Long Island Sound. 3 7-year-old boys, Richard, Keith, Alfred, identical triplets with identical injuries and identical futures, or so the doctors said. The car accident that killed their mother 3 years ago had left them paralyzed from the waist down, fractured vertebrae, damaged spinal cords, shattered childhoods. Roy George had spent $1.3 million trying to prove the doctors wrong. He flew in neurologists from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, Massachusetts General. Every single one said the same thing: the damage is permanent. Make peace with it. Focus on quality of life. So Roy bought the best wheelchairs money could buy, hired round-the-clock nurses, installed adaptive equipment throughout the mansion, wider doorways, lower countertops, ramps instead of stairs. But he couldn't buy back what his sons had lost, and he couldn't bear to stay in the house that reminded him of it. Roy George, 41 years old, CEO of Medicorp Pharmaceuticals. Forbes estimated his net worth at $847 million. He'd built his company on a simple promise: healing through innovation. But all his money, all his innovation, all his billion-dollar research labs couldn't heal his own children. So he worked 16-hour days, business trips to Dublin, Singapore, Geneva, board meetings, acquisition deals, manufacturing expansions, anything to avoid sitting in that silent mansion watching his boys stare at walls. The daily routine never changed. Nurses arrived at 8 in the morning, lifted the boys from their beds into their wheelchairs, bathed them, dressed them, fed them, positioned them in the sunroom by 9:30. The boys didn't speak, hadn't said a word since the accident. The doctors checked they weren't mute, just traumatized, locked inside themselves where the pain couldn't reach them. Richard, the oldest by 4 minutes, sometimes cried, silent tears that rolled down his cheeks while he stared at nothing. No one asked why. No one knew what to say. Keith, the middle child, closed his eyes for hours at a time, retreating somewhere deep inside himself, somewhere the wheelchairs and the nurses and the pitying looks couldn't follow. Alfred, the youngest, was different. He watched everything. His brown eyes tracked every bird that flew past the window, every cloud that drifted across the sky, every member of the household staff who walked through the sunroom, like he was trying to understand why everything else in the world got to move freely except him. The estate manager, Mrs. Van Houten, had been trying to hire a new live-in maid for 6 weeks. The previous one had quit without notice, just packed her things one morning and left. Mrs. Van Houten posted the job listing: $4,800 a month, room and board included. For a domestic position, it was extraordinarily generous. 57 people applied. She interviewed 12 of them. 3 walked out halfway through. One woman stopped in the foyer on her way out and said, "I can't work in a mausoleum, those poor babies." Roy wasn't home for any of the interviews. He was in Ireland, touring a new manufacturing facility. Mrs. Van Houten handled everything. She always did. By the time Roy's plane landed back in Connecticut, Mrs. Van Houten had finally found someone willing to take the job. Her name was Linda Baird. The woman who walked through the George Estate's doors on a cold February morning didn't come because she wanted the job. She came because she was out of options. And sometimes, that's exactly when God places you where you need to be. Linda Baird, 44 years old, African-American, 5'4" with graying hair pulled back tight, soft voice, tired eyes that still smiled. The kind of woman you pass on the street without noticing, until you need help. Then you realize she's been paying attention the whole time. She grew up in Bridgeport, 20 minutes from Greenwich, but a world away. The morning Mrs. Van Houten called, Linda had been staring at a letter on her kitchen table. Final notice. Payment required within 30 days, or discharge proceedings would begin for her mother, Dorothy Baird, 71 years old, diabetes, insulin dependent, living at Meadowbrook, assisted living. The facility cost $3,200 a month. Linda's previous job paid $2,400. She'd covered the difference with savings until the savings ran out. Now she was 3 months behind. $9,600. That morning, Linda knelt beside her bed and prayed, "Lord, I don't know what to do. I've applied everywhere. Please, just one door. Open just one door." 2 hours later, Mrs. Van Houten called, "The position is yours if you want it. You start Monday." During the interview, Mrs. Van Houten had been direct. "Why do you want this position?" Linda didn't lie. "I need it. My mother is sick. I'm behind on her care payments. I'm a good worker. I won't let you down." Mrs. Van Houten appreciated the honesty. "The boys have been through trauma. They don't speak. Your job is to maintain the household. You are not to provide medical care. We have nurses for that. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am. Mr. George has strict protocols. Do your job. Don't overstep." Linda arrived Monday morning with one suitcase. The staff quarters were small but clean. Luxury compared to her studio apartment. She unpacked. Bible on the nightstand. Photo of her mother. Photo of a young man in a football uniform. She knelt beside the bed. "Thank you for this provision. Show me how to serve this family well." At 10 o'clock, she entered the sunroom to dust. 3 wheelchairs, 3 boys, facing the windows. She froze. The boy on the right looked exactly like Marcus at 12. Same brown eyes, same serious expression. Her breath caught. Alfred turned his head slightly, looked at her. Linda smiled. "Good morning. I'm Linda. I'm going to be helping around the house." No response. Alfred's eyes held hers for a moment, then returned to the window. Linda began dusting. But she watched. Richard shifted in his chair. The nurses had positioned him at 10. It was 10:47 now. His left hand gripped the armrest, released, gripped again. That wasn't paralysis. That was movement. Keith's head tilted when a bird flew past, tracking the motion. Alfred's toes curled slightly when cold air came through the window. Linda said nothing, but her heart started beating faster, because she'd seen this before. Marcus, age 12. Football injury. Doctors said permanent paralysis, but Linda noticed his fingers moved when he got excited. His toes curled when she tickled his foot. She told the doctors. They said, "Spasms, involuntary, doesn't mean anything." Marcus died 7 years later, never walked again. Linda finished dusting and left the sunroom. In the hallway, she stopped, leaned against the wall, whispered, "Lord, I'm probably wrong. I don't know anything about medicine, but what if I'm not wrong?" Linda told herself to focus on her work, to stay in her lane. But over the next 2 weeks, she couldn't stop noticing, and the boys couldn't stop noticing her. By day 4, Linda had learned the rhythm of the house. Nurses arrived at 8, bathed the boys, dressed them, positioned them in the sunroom by 9:30. A physical therapist came Wednesdays for 15-minute stretches. Dinner at 6, bed at 8. No school. Tutors had tried for 6 months. The boys wouldn't engage. The tutors stopped coming. On day 4, Linda was cleaning when she started humming. His eye is on the sparrow. Alfred's eyes shifted from the window to her. Linda stopped. You like that song, honey? Alfred blinked. Once. 1 blink for yes? He blinked again. 2 blinks for no? Alfred blinked twice. First communication in 3 years. Linda fought tears. Okay, we have a language now. On day 8, Linda brought origami paper from her room. During lunch, she folded a paper crane. Blue paper. Alfred watched every fold. Linda placed it on his wheelchair tray. For you, it's a bird. Alfred stared at it, then at her. Blinked once. The nurses left at 4 p.m. Mrs. Van Houten stayed in the office wing. Linda had 90 minutes alone with the boys each afternoon. On day 10, she started experimenting. Alfred, can you feel this? She touched his right knee. He blinked once. Can you feel this? She touched his left foot. He blinked once. The medical record said, no sensation below L4 vertebrae. That included knees and feet. Either the records were wrong, or something had changed. That night, Linda searched on her laptop. Paralysis, sensation recovery. She found an article. Incomplete versus complete spinal cord injury. Recovery potential exists in children if aggressive physical therapy is initiated within 24 to 36 months post-injury. The boys were 38 months post-injury. Linda's hands shook. On day 13, Linda knelt beside Alfred. Honey, I'm going to try something. If it hurts, blink twice, okay? He blinked once. She gently lifted his right leg, bent the knee, straightened it. Slow circles. Alfred's eyes widened. Not in pain, in surprise. You can feel that, can't you? Blink. Each afternoon after that, Linda did gentle stretches. She talked constantly. Your bodies remember. Babies. We're going to wake them up. She told them about her brother. I had a little brother, Marcus. He got hurt playing football. Doctors said he'd never walk again, but I think they were wrong. Alfred watched her with intense focus every time she mentioned Marcus. Every few days, Linda made another origami animal. Bird, butterfly, frog. Richard collected them carefully. Keith touched them gently. Alfred kept the first blue crane in his hand. Always. On day 17, Linda was stretching Keith when she heard footsteps. Mrs. Van Houten. Linda grabbed her dust cloth, wiped the windowsill. Mrs. Van Houten entered. Miss Baird, I thought you'd finish this room. Just noticed some smudges, ma'am. Mrs. Van Houten eyed her, then the boys. Keith's leg was at a different angle. You're not touching the boys, are you? Linda's heart pounded. Only to adjust a blanket now and then, ma'am. The nurses handle all physical care. Your job is the house, not the children. Clear? Yes, ma'am. Crystal clear. Mrs. Van Houten left. Linda exhaled. That was close. After she was gone, Alfred made a sound. Not a word. A hum. Quiet, but intentional. Linda turned. What is it, baby? Alfred blinked once. Looked at his blue crane. Then at her. Don't stop, Linda whispered. I won't. I promise. Linda knew she was breaking the rules. But the boys were responding, engaging, waking up. She told herself she'd stop if anyone asked directly. But then someone did, and the choice became impossible. Wednesday afternoon, 2 p.m., Dr. Peter Brennan arrived for his weekly session with the boys. Late 50s, expensive watch, brusque manner. Linda knew from cleaning his office he had a Harvard medical credential plaque on the wall. She watched from the hallway as he went through his protocol. 15 minutes, passive stretches, no resistance, no progression. He checked boxes on his clipboard and headed for the door. See you next week. Linda was mopping the hallway. Her heart pounded as she gathered courage. Dr. Brennan, may I ask you something? He barely paused. Yes? I've noticed the boys respond to touch, like they can feel it. Could that mean— He cut her off. Involuntary spasms, common in spinal cord injury patients, doesn't indicate voluntary motor control. But what if it's not spasms? What if— Miss Baird, his tone sharpened, I've been a physical therapist for 30 years. I have 2 master's degrees and certifications in neurological rehabilitation. These boys have been evaluated by the top specialists in the country. If there was recovery potential, we'd know. Maybe more intensive therapy. Intensive therapy for permanent paralysis is cruel. It gives false hope. These boys need acceptance, not magical thinking. He left. Linda stood in the hallway, face burning. That evening, Mrs. Van Houten summoned her to the office. Dr. Brennan called. Said you were questioning his medical judgment. I didn't mean. Miss Baird, you're a housekeeper, not a doctor, not a nurse, not a therapist. You dust furniture and prepare meals. That's all. I understand, but— There's no but. I've been patient with you. But if you ever touch those boys beyond necessary adjustments again, you're terminated. Immediately. No severance. No reference. Clear? Yes, ma'am. Mr. George has been through hell. The last thing he needs is staff overstepping boundaries and getting his hopes up. Those boys will never walk. The sooner everyone accepts that, the better. Linda looked up. How do you know for sure? Mrs. Van Houten's face hardened. Because 5 neurologists said so. Because Mr. George spent over $1 million finding answers. Because science said so. Now, are you going to do your job? Or do I need to find someone who will? I'll do my job. Good. Dismissed. Linda walked back to her room, sat on the bed, head in hands. Her phone rang. Miss Baird, this is Director Chen from Meadowbrook. We need payment by Friday, or we'll begin discharge proceedings for your mother. I'm sorry. I understand. I'll have it. She hung up, stared at the wall. If she lost this job, her mother would be evicted. Where would she go? Linda's studio with no medical equipment. But if she stopped helping the boys, they'd lose their window. Forever. Linda opened her Bible, flipped to Esther 4, verse 14. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? She whispered. Lord, what are you asking me to do? She thought of Marcus. His last words. Why can't I move, Linda? She thought of Alfred's blue crane, Richard's silent tears, Keith's closed eyes. She thought of her mother. Insulin. Safety. Linda closed the Bible, wiped her eyes. She didn't say the decision out loud, but it was written on her face. She was going to keep going, even if it cost her everything. Linda had 3 days until her mother's payment was due. 3 days to decide, obedience or conscience. She didn't know it yet, but the decision had already been made. 7 years ago, at a graveside, when she made a promise she couldn't break. Friday morning. Linda woke and checked her phone. March 17th. 7 years ago today, Marcus died. She stared at the photo on her nightstand. A young man in a football uniform, eyes bright, smile wide. Marcus Baird, her baby brother, star linebacker, full ride to Yukon. October 14th, junior year, helmet-to-helmet hit, fractured T12 vertebra. Emergency room doctor, spinal cord injury, likely permanent. The family had Medicaid, no secondary insurance, free clinic neurologist, complete paralysis, he'll need a wheelchair for life. Linda, 37, quit her job to care for him. She researched everything, found articles about recovery windows, physical therapy. She begged the neurologist, what if we try PT? Physical therapy costs $200 per session, 5 times a week for months. Medicaid doesn't cover that. The odds are slim. Don't waste your money on false hope. Linda started a GoFundMe, raised $3,400, 4 weeks of therapy. Marcus showed improvements, toes wiggling, sensation returning. Then the money ran out. Linda applied for grants, loans, charity care. All denied. Marcus regressed. Muscle atrophy. Depression. Age 19. Sepsis from a pressure sore. He died in Linda's arms. 2 months later, his teammates' wealthy family paid for a posthumous MRI review. The report, incomplete, SCI. High probability of recovery with aggressive physical therapy if initiated within 18-month window. Marcus died 7 years post-injury. The window had closed long before. Linda read that report in her car, screamed until her voice gave out. At his grave, she made a promise. If I ever see this again, I won't be silent. I'll fight, even if it costs everything. Never again. Now, 7 years later, Linda held his photo. It's happening again. 3 boys, same injury, same lies. She knelt beside her bed. Lord, I don't understand what you're asking. I need this job. Mama needs me. But those boys look at me the way Marcus did. The window is closing. What if there's still time? You put me in that house. You showed me. So what do I do? Obey my boss and watch them lose their chance? Or obey you and lose everything? You're asking me to sacrifice Mama's security on faith. I'm scared. But I can't say I chose silence. Not again. If this is what you're asking, I'll do it. Take care of Mama. If I'm wrong, stop me. If I'm right, equip me. Guide my hands. Use me. Amen. Linda stood, washed her face, whispered, for Marcus, for Alfred, Richard, and Keith. Friday afternoon, nurses gone, Mrs. Van Houten at the dentist. Linda knelt before Alfred. We're going to try something bigger today. Trust me. Alfred blinked once. Linda began the most intensive session yet. Full rotations, resistance stretches, sensory work, 45 minutes per boy. By the end, she was sweating, praying aloud. Guide my hands, Lord. During the final stretch, Alfred's right foot pushed back. Not a spasm. Pressure. Intentional. Linda gasped. Alfred. Again. She pressed. He pushed. Her sob was immediate. Oh God. Thank you. Alfred's eyes filled with tears. He felt it. Linda wiped her eyes. Tomorrow, when Mr. George is home, we'll show him, we'll prove it. Alfred blinked once, but his eyes said, what if he doesn't believe? I need you to pause with me for a second. Linda has just risked everything. Her job, her mother's care, her survival. For 3 boys the world had written off, and now everything comes down to one moment. One man, one chance to be believed. But here's what she doesn't know yet. What's about to happen will change everything, not just for those boys, but for Linda, for Roy, and maybe even for you. If this story has gripped your heart, you're not here by accident. Subscribe right now, like this video, and tell me in the comments, have you ever risked everything for something you believed in, even when no one else could see it? I read every comment, and I believe this story found you for a reason. Now let me show you what happened next. Linda didn't know Roy George's jet was landing 2 hours early. Didn't know he'd decided to surprise the boys. Didn't know that the moment she chose obedience over safety, God was setting the stage for a miracle and a reckoning. Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock. Roy George's jet touched down at Westchester County Airport 2 hours early. A surprise return. He wanted to see his boys. At the same time, Linda knelt beside Alfred in the sunroom. Golden light poured through the windows. The house was silent, except for the sound of water lapping at the shore below. Okay, baby, Linda whispered. We're going to show your father what you can do. Are you ready? Alfred blinked once. Linda placed her hand on his right foot. When I touch your toe, I want you to push. Like we practiced. Show me you can. She touched his big toe. Alfred's face tightened with concentration. The toe moved, curled toward her finger. Linda's breath caught. Again, Do it again. He did it. Then the second toe. Then the third. Linda laughed through tears. Oh, baby, you're doing it. You're really doing it. She heard the front door open. Footsteps in the foyer. Rose's voice calling out, "Boys, anyone home?" Linda froze. This was it. Roy walked into the sunroom, stopped when he saw Linda on the floor beside Alfred, saw her hands on his son's legs. His face darkened. "What are you doing?" Linda stood quickly. "Mr. George, I can explain." "I asked what you're doing." His voice was cold. "I've been helping Alfred. He can move his toes. He can feel. You've been touching my son." Roy reached for his phone. "I'm calling security." "Dad." The word was barely a whisper, raspy, unused, but it stopped Roy cold. He turned slowly, stared at Alfred. "What did you say?" Alfred's eyes locked on his father. "Dad." "Look." Roy's phone slipped from his hand. Alfred stared down at his right foot. His face tightened, and his toes curled, all 5 of them, on command. Roy's legs buckled. He grabbed the door frame. How is that possible?" Linda's voice was soft. "He has an incomplete spinal cord injury, Mr. George. Not complete. There was always potential for recovery. He just needed physical therapy." Roy's voice was barely audible. He crossed the room, knelt beside Alfred's wheelchair. "Do it again, son. Please." Alfred concentrated. His toes curled, released, curled again. Roy reached out with shaking hands, touched Alfred's foot, felt the movement beneath his fingers. Tears streamed down his face. 3 years. 3 years. And you've been in there the whole time." He looked up at Linda, really looked at her, saw her worn hands, her tears, the complete absence of self-interest in her eyes. "How did you know?" Linda's voice broke. "Love, Mr. George. I just loved him, that's all." For one moment, Roy understood. For one moment, the miracle was enough. Then his phone rang on the floor. He picked it up. His lawyer. A liability case. A patient suing Medicorp. His brain snapped back to risk assessment mode. He looked at Linda's hands, looked at Alfred, thought, unauthorized medical intervention, no credentials, no license. If she'd damaged his spine, if she'd severed a nerve, lawsuit, criminal charges, bankruptcy. The wonder hardened into fear. "What exactly did you do to him?" Linda stepped back. "Just gentle stretches. Physical therapy exercises, I learned." "Physical therapy?" Roy stood. "You're not a licensed therapist. Do you have any idea the risk? If you'd caused a secondary injury, if you'd severed a nerve, I would never hurt him. Mr. George?" Mrs. Van Houten stood in the doorway. She'd heard him arrive. She saw Linda, saw Alfred, saw the intimacy of the moment. Her face went cold. "I warned her, Mr. George, multiple times. And just like that, a miracle became a crime." Roy's voice was ice. "You're terminated. Immediately. No severance, no reference." Linda didn't argue, didn't defend herself. "Please," she said quietly, "keep moving his legs. Every day, the window is closing." Roy pointed toward the door. "Mrs. Van Houten will supervise your departure." Mrs. Van Houten escorted Linda to her room, stood in the doorway, watched her pack like she might steal something. Linda folded her clothes in silence, placed her Bible in the suitcase, her mother's photo, Marcus's photo. She picked up the origami paper, set it on the nightstand. "For the boys, if they want to keep making birds." Mrs. Van Houten's voice was flat. "I don't think that's appropriate." Linda closed her suitcase. "Then throw it away." At the front door, Linda stopped. "May I say goodbye to them?" Mr. George said. "Please, just 1 minute." Mrs. Van Houten hesitated. 1 minute. Linda walked to the sunroom. The nurses had brought Richard and Keith when they heard the commotion. All 3 boys sat in their wheelchairs, all 3 pairs of eyes locked on her. Linda knelt in front of them, Her voice broke. I have to go now, but I need you to remember something. She looked at Alfred. You are strong enough. Your body does remember. Don't stop trying. Promise me. Alfred's voice came out raspy but clearer than before. Don't go, please. Linda's face crumpled. I don't have a choice, baby. Richard made a sound. Not a word. A cry. The first sound he'd made in 3 years. Keith reached for her with his hand, the one that had been twitching. Linda touched each of their faces. I love you. All 3 of you. And God loves you. He's going to finish what he started. I believe that. Mrs. Van Houten appeared in the doorway. Time's up. Linda stood, walked out, didn't look back, because if she did, she would break. She sat in her old Honda Civic in the driveway, hands shaking on the steering wheel. One whispered prayer, I did what you asked. Now please, take care of them. She drove away. In the sunroom window, 3 boys watched her go. That night, Roy paced his office. Tried to convince himself he'd done the right thing. She could have hurt them. She had no training, no credentials. I had no choice. But Alfred's voice kept echoing. Dad, look. The toe moving, the intention in his eyes. The first word his son had spoken in 3 years. Roy sat at his desk, pulled up Alfred's medical file on his computer, stared at it, didn't open it. Not yet. Linda arrived at her studio apartment. Sat on the bed. Her phone rang. Meadowbrook Assisted Living. Miss Baird, we haven't received payment. I know. I lost my job today. I need a few days to figure something out. Silence on the line. I'm sorry, Miss Baird. We can give you until Monday. After that, we're legally required to begin discharge proceedings. I understand. Thank you. She hung up, stared at the wall, whispered, I'm trying to trust you, but I need help. Please. That night, the nurse put the boys to bed. Alfred refused to sleep. He kept moving his toes, over and over, like he was proving to himself it was real. Richard hummed, the same hymn Linda used to sing. Keith held his paper crane, wouldn't let it go. The nurse noted in the chart, patients, unusually agitated post-staff termination, increased vocalizations, recommend monitoring. Roy George tried to sleep that night. He couldn't, because 3 words kept echoing in his mind. Dad, look. At 2 a.m., he gave up trying. And that's when everything changed. 2 a.m. Roy sat at his desk, opened Alfred's medical file. 142 pages. He'd never read them himself, trusted the summaries, trusted the experts. Page 47. Diagnostic impressions. His blood went cold. Incomplete spinal cord injury. ASIA classification C. Preserved sensory function below injury level. Recommendation. Aggressive physical therapy protocol. Minimum 4 hours daily. Initiate within 24-month window for optimal recovery. Roy read it 3 times. Incomplete. Not complete. Recoverable. 24-month window. The boys were now 38 months post-injury. He scrolled to the addendum. Dated 2 weeks after the initial report. After consultation regarding family circumstances, revised treatment approach recommended. Pharmaceutical management protocol. Weekly maintenance PT. Rationale. Treatment outcome variability creates liability. Pharmaceutical approach offers predictable care trajectory. Roy's hands trembled. He searched his emails. Found a chain between Dr. Raymond Colfax and Dr. Angela Price, Medicorp's chief medical officer. Subject: George Family Treatment Protocol Alignment. Dr. Price's message: given Mr. George's position as Medicorp CEO, we should align treatment with pharmaceutical management rather than PT. Aggressive PT outcomes are too variable. Creates market instability if patients recover and discontinue medication. Family can afford indefinite care costs. Dr. Colfax's reply: understood, will amend report. Also, my consulting contract is up for renewal. Hope we can discuss continuation and stock option expansion. Roy stopped breathing. They knew the whole time. His sons could have walked. A maid figured it out in 2 weeks. These doctors had 18 months and $1.3 million. They chose profit over his children's lives. Roy grabbed his phone, called Dr. Colfax. Groggy voice. Roy? It's 3 in the morning. Page 47. Incomplete SCI. PT recommended. You buried it. Why? Silence. Roy. That was a preliminary assessment. I'm looking at your email to Angela Price. Market stability. Stock options. You prescribed my son's medications that my company manufactures. You receive $180,000 a year in consulting fees. You own 15,000 shares of Medicorp stock. Medical decision-making is complex. My sons could have walked, and you chose profit over their lives. If you're threatening legal action, expect a call from my attorney Monday morning. And from the State Medical Board. Roy hung up. He sat in the silence. Looked around his office. Degrees on the wall. Awards. Entrepreneur of the Year. He'd built an empire on healing through innovation, but the system he profited from had consumed his own children. He whispered to the empty room. What have I become? At 4:30, he called Mrs. Van Houten. I need Linda Baird's address, now. At 6 a.m., Roy drove to Bridgeport, 20 minutes from Greenwich. A different universe. He'd never been in this neighborhood. Cracked sidewalks, faded buildings, rusted fire escapes. He knocked on Linda's door. No answer. Knocked again. An elderly neighbor opened her door. She's not there. Left early. Probably at her mama's place. Meadowbrook, over on Seaview. Roy nodded. Thank you. He walked back to his car, sat behind the wheel. For 3 years, he'd trusted strangers with credentials over people who actually loved his sons. First his wife Caroline, who'd questioned the doctors before she died. Then Linda, who'd risked everything to help them. Both women saw the truth. Both dismissed because they weren't experts. Roy George had spent 3 years running from his grief, but that morning he drove straight into it, and toward the only person who'd told him the truth. Roy arrived at Meadowbrook Assisted Living at 7 a.m. I'm looking for Linda Baird. Visiting hours start at 9, sir. It's urgent. The receptionist saw something broken in his face. She's in the garden, out back. Roy found Linda sitting beside an elderly woman in a wheelchair. Oxygen tank, insulin pump. Linda was reading from a Bible. She looked up, saw him. Her face went guarded. Roy stopped a few feet away. Miss Baird, may I speak with you? Linda touched her mother's shoulder. Mama, I'll be right back. They walked a few steps away. Linda's arms crossed. I owe you an apology, Roy said. I fired you for saving my sons. I was wrong about everything. Why are you here, Mr. George? Last night I found the real medical reports. Dr. Colfax recommended physical therapy 18 months ago. He buried it. Because he profits from keeping my sons on medication. Linda nodded slowly. I suspected. Your brother, Marcus. I read your file. Incomplete spinal cord injury. Treatable. He died because you couldn't afford the care. Linda's tears came fast. You saw the same thing happening to my sons. You helped them anyway, even knowing I'd fire you, even needing the job desperately. Her voice broke. I couldn't watch it happen again. You risked everything. And I punished you for it. Roy knelt. Right there in the garden, on the cold ground, Mr. George. Linda, I am so sorry. You saw my sons when I couldn't. You gave them hope. And I threw you out like you were nothing. Please stand up. Not until you forgive me. Silence. I forgave you the moment you fired me. You were scared. Protecting them the only way you knew how. Roy stood, tears streaming. I don't deserve that grace. None of us do. That's why it's called grace. Roy steadied himself. Your mother's bills. I'm paying them, all of them, and I'm starting a foundation for spinal cord injury patients who can't afford treatment, named after your brother, the Marcus Baird Recovery Fund. I want you to direct it. Linda shook her head. I'm just a maid. No, you're the woman who saw what million-dollar doctors missed. From her wheelchair, Dorothy called out, Linda, baby, what's going on? Linda knelt beside her mother. Mama, I think God just answered our prayers. That afternoon, Linda returned to the mansion, walked into the sunroom. Alfred saw her first. His voice rang out loud and clear. Linda! Richard and Keith reached for her. She ran to them, knelt, embraced all three. I'm back, babies. I'm not leaving again. 6 months later, Richard took his first assisted steps. Keith spoke his first sentence. I love you, Linda. Alfred walked 10 steps independently before collapsing into Linda's arms. Roy watched from the doorway. Finally at peace. At the foundation launch, Roy stood at the podium. Today we launched the Marcus Baird Recovery Fund, named after a young man who died because he couldn't access care. He gestured to Linda beside him. Our director saved my sons when every expert failed. Now she'll help save others. Later, Linda knelt at Marcus's grave. I kept my promise, baby. 3 boys are walking because I didn't stay silent. Rest easy. Your life is still saving lives. The headstone inscription. Marcus Baird. His eye is on the sparrow. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something. This channel is more than entertainment. It's a mission. To tell stories that expose truth. That gives hope. That reminds you you're not crazy for questioning systems that don't serve you. We're a family here, and this family needs you. Help us reach more people who need to hear stories like Linda's, who needs to know that courage matters, that one person can make a difference. Join our family by subscribing now. Your support means everything. Don't leave without sharing this story. Someone in your life needs to hear it. See you tomorrow when I bring you a truly touching story about a billionaire who secretly followed the nanny into the room of his dying twins, only to discover something truly shocking. Thank you for watching and staying to the end.